Hi, Dan here. I am going to be brewing my Avery Maharaja clone. Well, it's actually the Brewing Network's clone of their Imperial IPA from Avery. So let's get to it. I use distilled water because water in Las Vegas is very hard. And I put my own salts in, like Epsom salt, gypsum. I might do a video on that later. But yeah, just adding the distilled water to the kettle. Going to use about 2 and 3/4 gallons of water for the mash. Here I'm adding the salts. I'm adding 4 grams of gypsum, 5 grams of calcium chloride. There's the gypsum there. Gypsum is a really good one for increasing your hop bitterness. It really accentuates the hops. If you're not getting IPAs that you like, you can try adding a couple grams of gypsum in your water, maybe 4 to 5 grams. I'll also be adding 5 grams of calcium chloride, 3 grams of Epsom salt, and 3 grams of baking soda. This will give me a pH of 5.44. This is my mash tun. It's a 10-gallon mash tun igloo cooler that I bought from the homebrew store. Just has a plastic spigot on it, just like any other spigot. Haven't had any problems with it producing any flavors or anything like that. It has a CPVC manifold. It's different than PVC. It can withstand the higher temperatures, and it just comes apart, as you can see. There's little holes drilled into it. And the whole thing comes apart for cleaning, easy cleaning. I can also move the direction of the holes, and I've never had any stuck sparge problems with it. I like to get my strike water temperature a little higher, a couple of degrees than what Beersmith says. After doughing in and getting the strike water in there, I'm going to mix up the grains real good, break up any possible dough balls. Um, just going to mix the grains in real good, get the heat all distributed real well. Make sure that the mash tun is heated as well. And here's the salts going into the mash. Gonna stir those in nice and good. I did hit my target temperature, which is 147 degrees on this batch of beer, the Avery Maharaja clone. And this is a 3-gallon batch, that's why there doesn't seem to be much volume in this 10-gallon fermenter. Vorlofting is a very important step with all grain because it creates a grain bed filter in your mash tun. You can't really see it here, but there's a lot of cloudy grains in this wort as it's being pulled off. So I'm going to recirculate this and create that grain bed filter. So after mashing for 1 hour and vorlofing, I am now collecting my first wort runnings directly into the kettle and heating my sparge water. I like it to be about 180. Try to get those grains up in temperature. After mixing in the sparge water, and getting the grain all mixed in, getting the heat distributed there, I'll take a temperature reading. The temperature did come out a little bit lower than I like at 156, but that should be okay because at 156 some more sugar should be maybe extracting from the grains, so I'm not too worried about it. Let the sparge sit for about 15 minutes and then did another Vorloff. Let it sit for another 5 minutes to create that grain bed filter, and then I'll start running off the sparge water. Going to drain very slowly on the sparge water. The slower drain gives you a little more efficiency, and that's just the way I like to do it. I'll let it sit there for a good half an hour or so, up to an hour, however long it takes to drain out the sparge water completely from the mash tun. Now onto the boil. I do like to use a defoaming agent when I do a boil, especially because I do the boil on the stove. This really helps with boil overs quite a bit, and you need about 3 or 4 or 5 drops worth, and no more boil over problems. Even though it foamed up, I didn't have to take it off the burner or spray it down to prevent a boil over. This is a little trick that I learned from Gordon Strong's new book, to go ahead and skim off the hot break, so let the boil breathe a little bit better, and it also get that material out of the wort. Here we have our hop additions, quite a bit of hops here. Centennial, Columbus, and Simcoe. Flock tablet for the last 15 minutes there. We're going for the 60-minute hop edition right here. That is 19 grams of Columbus, whole hops. Those look kind of brownish. I hope that they're not too old, but we'll go ahead and use them anyway. And I like to stir them in a little bit with the boil here. Using my iPhone app to set my timer to 30 minutes. 30 minutes, I'll add the next addition. I'm going to collect a little bit of the boiling wort to put in my Erlenmeyer flask. Later on, I'm going to use this to make my yeast starter. I usually like to let my wort cool overnight, so I might as well make the yeast starter now. Let that um, get up the yeast cells overnight, and it's an easy way of making your yeast starter. The second addition is 19 grams of Columbus again, and again, going to stir those in with my spoon. And the 15-minute addition is 38 grams of Centennial and 38 grams of Simcoe. That's not counting the dry hops. There's a ton of dry hops in this recipe. Next goes in the dry malt extract. This is also at 15 minutes. Just going to add in a pound of dry malt extract. The recipe actually calls for that. Um, and according to the brewer, that's what they actually use is dry malt extract in the AV Maharaja IPA. And in goes the wort chiller, the last 10 minutes of the boil. That'll sanitize the wort chiller. And then we hook the wort chiller up to the sink. I like to put a little aluminum foil over my kettle, spray it down with a little bit of sanitizer, just to keep any floating dust from getting into there. Another trick I've used is to run the water after it's cooling down back into the sink and cool the sides of the kettle off a little bit. The kettle's actually hotter than the water here. And Mr. Malty's app calculator tells me to pitch 1.72 liters. So I'm topping up that wort that I collected in my Erlenmeyer flask with cool distilled water to get it up to temperature and get it a little over 1600 milliliters, and let that go for a day before pitching it into the wort. Here I've collected a little over 2.5 gallons. Y yeast 1056 going into the yeast starter. Give it a nice careful pour so it goes right down the center. Swell, swell, swell. And pour the rest of that yeast into the starter. That's going to go into my temperature controlled fridge. Aerating the wort the next day and getting some nice bubbling action a few hours after pitching. One more thing. This is for you, SJ Pour. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. Brew beer.